Thomas is going to share with us today part of what he does as an expertise. He's going to talk about fraud prevention. A lot of us, in business, we talk about it in our personal stuff, but oftentimes as a small business operator, we don't pay attention to it, and we need to. So Thomas is going to share some best practices with us, and I'll open us in prayer real quick, and then we'll go ahead and hand it over to Thomas to take us through this. He's left a lot of room for Q&A as well, so you can talk about your personal situations with that. Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity to meet this morning. Thank you for the provisions that you've given to us. Lord, we ask that you bless the words from Thomas, help him to help us to protect what it is that you've blessed us with. Lord, we know that there's so much to learn and it's ongoing. And we know as we pay attention to the things of this world, these are some things that we do need to pay attention to. We know you've led us to trust, but we also know that you've led us to protect ourselves, Lord. Lift Thomas up in this brief discussion, and thank you for the opportunity today. All this we pray in Jesus' name.
Amen. All right, so the last time I spoke, I talked almost solely about digital or cybersecurity. And so we're going to start with some of that because we have some great discussions, lots of questions. And if we get to the other stuff, that's great. But if we just stay on that one topic, that's fine too. And I'm glad that Charlie, you're sitting right across from me, so that way we can have tons of conversations throughout. You had some great questions last time that I didn't anticipate. But when you think about fraud prevention, especially within your company, you want to trust your employees. You want to trust the people you work with. And so you automatically will get in that mindset of, oh, they wouldn't do that, or oh, I trust that person, and we have to take a step back from that. So what I always advise people, whenever you think about your most valuable employee, maybe they do all of the HR, the accounting, the IT, whatever, don't think of that as, okay, David Mossberg is doing that for me. Instead, replace that person with the politician you hate the most. Do you trust that politician to do everything that, if you've got David Mossberg as an employee, do you trust that person to do everything that David's doing without any additional oversight, review, management, etc.? And if your answer is no, absolutely not, that's your answer as far as do you need to put more steps in place to be able to help protect your company. And several of the Bible verses that I bring up with this, we all know most of them, right? Romans 3:23, for all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. We're all sinners. We can all succumb to the temptation of doing something we shouldn't be doing. Okay? The next one is John 1:8. If we claim to be without sin, we deceive ourselves and the truth is not in us. So even if we tell ourselves as business owners or business leaders, oh, I wouldn't do that. Well, the temptation, you're going to be tempted. If other business owners and leaders have been tempted to do it, you're going to have the same temptations as the others. And then over in Mark, quoting Jesus, what comes out of a person is what defiles them. For it is from within, out of a person's heart, that evil thoughts come. So again, we have to remember, it's easy to try to just trust somebody and say, oh, that person wouldn't do it, but we have to remember we're all sinners. We're all going to have these temptations. Does anybody just absolutely disagree with what I'm saying? Hope not. All right.
I think even not just the evil thoughts, I've always said, don't tempt someone. You don't know where they are. Right? Just don't tempt them. I have stylists that they are the breadwinner in January and February. I just talked about you're starting. Yeah. You have to plan for those months, and you don't want to tempt them.
Exactly.
And I've got stylists that will leave we have cash all the time, and their purses are wide open, and there's hundreds of dollars in their purse in the back room. I'm like, they would never know.
Yeah.
And I tell them, close your purse. Anyway.
What gives me is access to bank accounts, and your business account. You might have several people with access to it. I say, okay, would you take all that cash out and put it on the counter, and say, okay, whatever you want to pay a bill, just go over there and grab a stack of cash and go pay it. No, of course not, right? But it's very similar to, if you grant too much access to a banking system or QuickBooks where they can pay bills and stuff, you're doing the exact same thing as just leaving cash out on the counter. But anyway, that's it. I can go on. So I published 2 books kind of recently through Amazon. One of them is a cybersecurity guidebook for small business. And I put this quote in here. Look, criminals are lazy. But if you're lazier than they are, then they're going to win. So the purpose of fraud prevention, there's no such thing as 100% protection. If you look at cybersecurity and all of the different hacks that are going on, and you hear about data being stolen, most of those companies had some kind of processes in place to help protect the data. But they either cut corners, they went cheap, or they just didn't do proper training, they got lazy, and the criminals were able to get in. So a great example here, thinking about your home. So I have a house up here, but it works as for an apartment, a house, however you live. But who here, when you get home, you close the door, you lock your door? Raise your hand if you lock your door.
I lock my kids out.
Good. Now, my wife grew up in Waller, which is in the middle of nowhere, and you have almost no neighbors. I had to kind of teach her to lock the door whenever she would leave the house, because they just always left things unlocked. I didn't see a hand raised over here, and it didn't surprise me at all, right? But most of the time, we lock our doors whenever we leave. Now, what about you unlock the door, you walk in, you lock it. What about turning off a security alarm? Who here has to turn off a security alarm? Only one hand. See a couple of nods.
I have one, I don't use it.
All right, what about security cameras? Anybody have security cameras for their house? All right, more of that. What about a guard dog? Anybody have like a vicious guard dog?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That is the best deterrent.
Not that one.
All right.
Yeah, when you said vicious, what does that
I was being sarcastic.
All right, what about, so you go in, you unlock it, you wave at the camera, you pet the guard dog, you also say hello to your armed security guy that's in there. Maybe not John Wick, but I look forward to number 4 coming out soon. But what about your armed security guard? Does anybody have armed security at their house?
We have guns and a big husband.
But you don't have armed security personnel that are like walking your property, am I right? Right. So the point of this is there's different levels of security, right? Your perceived risk, and your risk is called risk appetite. You have enough security in place for your home to make you feel like it's secure and it's safe, that while you're there, you're okay, and when you're gone, it's okay, right? In my book, I actually give the example, someone sees you driving around your Ferrari, because we all drive Ferraris in here, right? And, oh yeah, absolutely. So they see you have a nice car, they follow you home, they see where you live, and they look, and you always keep your front door wide open, it's never locked. They see the giant 80-inch TV that's high def and all of that on the inside. What are the odds of that TV still being there tomorrow? Right? Because not only can they get in, you're leaving the front door wide open all the time because you don't even bother locking it. Right? So the point of this example is you take steps and you put steps in place. They know your door is going to be locked. If you're driving a Ferrari and you have a huge TV, you probably have some type of security protection in place. So they know it's not necessarily going to be easy to get to that TV and steal it, right? So that's the point of fraud prevention. Not take the TV down every night, put it into a safe, bury the safe, and put guard dogs all around it, right? You have to go within reason, but you need to deter it to where criminals were driving by, they're like, you know what, it's not worth the effort. And that's what we need to do with our security. So there's 3 different types of, or areas of risk that we're going to talk about. One, some people call it cybersecurity. I call it digital security. And the reason why I say digital is because when we think cyber, we automatically think internet or online. And it's more than just that. The next is internal security, internal risk. That's your employees, yourself, your spouse, your business partner. And then external would be exactly what it sounds like. Customers, vendors, people walking by, whether it's a storefront or just walking around outside. All right, so talking about cybersecurity or digital security, what do you think of when we bring that up? What do you think of? What are your concerns? What's like, oh, I hope he talks about X, Y, Z.
Just recently, we started keeping credit cards on file.
Okay.
Well, whenever you have a no-show, and you've got your day booked out, and it's a $1,500 day, and then they no-show, we charge the card.
Sure.
And so what is the, I mean, and I have not looked into this too much because I'm just too trusting, and I know I shouldn't be, because I'm just thinking, I, knock on wood, there's no wood, but I've not ever had issues like cyber, any kind of theft, or, you know, I have fraud on my card, that's it. But there are stuff in place that I could put on my computer to keep that safe, right?
Well,
Keep the information safe,
Yes.
keep somebody from,
Because I know that like years ago, Target had fraud on cards, and I guess they keep all the card numbers in their computer. And I clicked not to keep them. Well, just recently, my daughter started putting her clients' cards in, and I'm like, oh crap. So I have to figure that out.
that's a tough one, right? But yeah, not just external hackers, for lack of a better term, but what if one of your employees walks up there and copies all that information down, or takes a picture of it?
because they can sell it,
They can sell it, they can use it. Yeah.
use it or sell it.
Yep. There was, back when I changed careers, so a little history about myself. I got a degree in marketing, found out very quickly that I did not want to do marketing. I was a store manager for CVS for a little while, and then I went back to school for my accounting hours. Well, when I was in school again, I waited on tables at Willie's Ice House, and I delivered pizzas for Pizza Hut for about 6 months, having both jobs while taking my accounting hours. While I was at Pizza Hut, just as I was leaving, an assistant manager got arrested. And what happened was he was writing down credit card numbers when people would call in over the phone and give their credit card. And he was, I don't know if he was, I think he was selling the credit card information. And I think it was the FBI. I wasn't involved because I was, just a delivery driver at the time, right? But yeah, he got caught and he got busted for.
How did he get caught if he was selling it?
Well,
He didn't use the card.
He didn't use the card, but he was selling it to more locals. He wasn't necessarily selling like on the black market.
Okay.
And it was just one of those that if 5 people complained that, oh, my card was used incorrectly, and they start looking and there's a Pizza Hut that all 5 were using.
Right.
That's probably what got it.
So the lesson is don't sell them locally.
Yeah.
So-
Right.
Tell us like Detroit.
So you've got 2 risks. One is, can someone from outside your organization get access to it? The other is, who can see that information on the inside of your store too? Those are the 2 risks you need to be
I
kind of
don't think
considering.
anybody but myself can,
You don't think?
that I'm logged into. I'm almost positive they can't, because but I don't know that, I'll check it.
Yeah, that's what I would do. So that comes into the first 3 tips we have here as far as cybersecurity or digital security. First off is knowing your universe. So I was talking about your home, right? When you think about your house or an apartment or anywhere you live, I know for my house, I know I have a front door. I know I have a back door that goes to my garage. I also have a back door for my kitchen. And so I know those 3 spots. We need to keep the doors locked, right? Make sure my kids are closing the door as they go in and out of the house. But I also have windows, and most of those windows are very large and easy to get into. Are they locked? Little simple steps like that. But when it comes to the digital side, what software do you have? QuickBooks, your customer management system, your CRM, critical spreadsheets. If you do all of your accounting in an Excel spreadsheet, what happens if that Excel spreadsheet got deleted? Or for me, and a lot of you that are in sales, you might have a whole list of all of your customers, their contact information, when's the last time they did a sell, or people that you're targeting for marketing stuff. What if that file suddenly got deleted and you have to start all over? How much time and effort was used there? So devices, having a cell phone. Do you give out business cell phones, or does someone use business cell phones? Well, you know what? Those need to have also protections there as well. And are they allowed to download any apps they want to the phone? Google has been really working hard. Apple has improved with it as well. There are thousands of apps on their app stores that are being used fraudulently and being used to steal your data. So they're trying real hard to crack it down, but if it's a business issued phone, it should be really restricted as far as what they can download. So understanding where your data is, whether it's online or just on your laptops, is the first step. Because if you don't know what you're trying to protect, then you're going to miss something. you also need to understand the types of attacks. We've talked about some of those. The number one type of attack is phishing, the phishing emails. They will, how many people during the holidays got an email from Amazon saying they couldn't deliver a package?
Yeah.
And how many of those were actually legitimate emails warning us, right?
Never. I'm not
Never.
aware.
Yeah, exactly. Amazon knows my house very, very well. In fact, sometimes, I'm pretty sure they stop by every once in a while to make sure we're okay.
Just to say hi.
So that's the number one type of attack is doing fake emails. I get emails all the time from myself asking me to approve payroll.
Now, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
If you click on that email, are you automatically exposed to what they want, or are they fishing for you to answer questions that would allow them in?
It could be either way.
So the best thing to do is just wipe it off, swipe it off.
Right.
What if you're not sure if it's real?
Yeah, that's the thing.
So I covered those a little bit more in detail in the last presentation, but whenever it comes to emails, if you're not sure, one of the first things I do is if you hover your mouse over the sender's email, it will show you what email address it came from. Mm-hmm. A lot of times, it's very obvious it's not a real legitimate email. Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing I would do. If you're on your phone, if you hold, press long with your fingers instead of just tapping, it should show the email address as well. Okay. That's the very first thing I would do. If you're unsure, what you should always do, if you get Amazon, Chase Bank, because I use Chase Bank, anything like that, instead of clicking the link to say, oh, maybe I need to get this fixed, don't click the link. Well, log into the website. If you log into Amazon and look at your orders, it'll tell you very clearly if they had an issue, right, for delivery. Mm-hmm. All right. So that's just like if you have a banking issue, first thing you do is call the bank or log into your bank account. You don't click the link. Mm-hmm. They'll even tell you, we do not ask for your username and password, the stuff that they ask for. So those are the red flags. Also, trust your instinct. If you have any type of hesitation, assume the worst. Assume the worst. When you talk about, if you do click on something, is it an immediate issue? The first thing I would do is go ahead and run an antivirus scan immediately. This was jogged a memory for me. It was probably 12 years ago now. I accidentally clicked a link, and that was when the internet was a little bit slower. So as soon as I realized I clicked, I literally clicked, I was like, oh no! So I grabbed the Ethernet cable and unplugged it from my computer. I cut off the internet, just to be on the safe side. Then I ran the antivirus and everything was fine. But I was paranoid about that, and I was like, okay, let's get it. So that was one positive I had. I was able to just disconnect. You can't get me. But. So the next part is the multi-factor authentication. How many people love getting the username, your password? Okay, now we're going to send you a text code. Or the code via email. How many people really enjoy getting those? Isn't that great? Doesn't it slow you down in your way? It works.
It works. I was really kind of glad that the brokerage firm is using it.
Well, even HubSpot, which HubSpot is a great customer management system, they are requiring multi-factor authentication to be turned on by the middle of this month. So I absolutely love when companies are doing that.
What about face recognition or?
That's another type of multi-factor.
Is that effective?
Mm-hmm. Now,
it seems like it'd be harder to hack that.
Right, and that's remember the very beginning, criminals are lazy.
Yeah.
Right? So if you have anything like that turned on, forcing it, mine's a fingerprint. Even my authenticator app, and I'll show you an example of an authenticator app in a minute. I have to use my fingerprint to open the authenticator app. Right. So even if you do the multi-factor and they're able to hack my multi-factor MFA easily, you still have to have my fingerprint to be able to open up the app. So all these little steps. And again, could they hack it and actually get that multi-factor stuff? They'll do it. Yes, they can. But the harder you make it, the less likely it is that they're going to attack you. Yeah. Anybody see the recent article about Chick-fil-A? Yeah. From middle of December to the middle of February, Chick-fil-A was hacked. And if you have an account, say like the Chick-fil-A app, they got your username, they got your password, they got some other information about you from the Chick-fil-A app. And the way they got it is they went online, they bought on the black market username and passwords that are used on other accounts. And they started just trying to hit Chick-fil-A accounts using those username and passwords, which, let's face it, most of us use the same username and passwords for almost everything. And they did what's called a brute force attack. They just kept trying to log in, trying to get information. Now, thankfully, credit cards were not part of that because they masked the credit cards to where they didn't get financial information. That's why you haven't really heard much about it.
But they can order off your app.
They can order off your app, but also, I don't know about you,
It's everywhere.
but those points are almost more valuable than a credit card. And they were using the
taking the
credit
points.
cards. They were taking the points, too.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny.
Another one last thing on the digital side before we hit the internal side. If you use Zoom, or I think Teams as well, but definitely Zoom, and you have different Zoom meetings and such, always turn on the waiting room and or require a password to be able to log into the Zoom room. I think it's Congress. I know part of our government has had this happen to them multiple times now, so they haven't learned their lesson. But they will have an open room on Zoom talking about whatever, and they get porn bombed, where all of a sudden all of these different sites start hitting that open Zoom room, and they start getting porn just dropped in on it, just massive amounts of it.
Why in the world?
Yeah, why? That doesn't even make sense.
Some people do it just for sport.
Yeah, just because they can. But by turning on a password requirement or having that waiting room, I use the waiting room. Yeah, actually, I use both the password and the waiting room.
But the point really there is that anybody could come into that room and just listen in on their conversation.
Listening on the conversation. How many times do you use Zoom and you're actually having very sensitive conversations about like financial data, sales plans, marketing plans? Yeah, they could very easily just log in and listen. Yeah, very, very easy. All right, before we move on, any comments, questions, anything you've experienced with some of this?
Yes, for like medical reasons, they always ask you for your social security. You don't need to give it, you only need to give your ID and your group number for your card. One time, a long time ago, I used to help a lady clean out houses or businesses and whatever. And there was all these files with all this people information that was just left behind with social security, addresses. I mean, the whole thing that you fill out at the office, it was left behind there. And I felt so bad. I'm throwing all this information. I felt like taking it home and like burning it because
Right.
because you put it in the trash bag and you're like, I don't care to have this stuff, but you don't know the next person, how they're gonna feel about it. So every time they ask me about my social, I never give it to them because I'm like, it's not important for you to have my social. You don't access my medical records that way, So I
That's
just
a good
wanted to-
point. I've always wondered about that because so many people want you to give them their social
Yes.
security.
Okay. I normally push back on almost any data, to be honest. If they say, hey, we need this, this, and this, I ask why. No, normally the sales rep you're talking to isn't going to know the answer. Sometimes they do. There's a conference that I'm sponsoring soon, and whenever you register people, you put in your email address, but one of the required lines is cell phone number. Why do they have to have a cell phone number? Makes no sense to me. So I've just been putting in zeros. That's what I've been doing. Because it just doesn't, but I
What
mean,
can they do with your cell phone number?
well, sponsors like myself would love to get your cell phone number so I can text you, call you, all of that. And to me, it's a personal cell phone number.
I think it's one more factor, right? So also in security safe, most of those second factor authentication codes go to your cell phone.
Sure.
So if I can get access to your cell phone and I can get your username and password, then I can get your second factor.
Well, as business owners, our cell phone number's
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, these are all, or not all, but quite a few of these are executives, VPs, and such. So,
So there's a good argument for having a personal cell phone and a business cell phone. I mean, you do have to have contact, and nobody uses landlines anymore.
right. Yeah, I haven't had a landline. I don't know how long it's been since I had a landline.
And the other thing is I always have a double authentication. Like I have it on my Gmail, and
Yep.
I have it on my Chase, and anything I can do it on, I always have double authentication where they send you a second email. Like I constantly get them from my Chase. They send me a text message saying, hey, you need to put this up, and I'm like, God dang it, I'm trying to do somebody trying to hack me. I know.
Well, I get tons of the Microsoft sent you a one-time use code emails because they're trying to use the Microsoft account. And so yeah, I get that often.
So I get an email yesterday from AT&T, and in essence they say, we've been notified by one of our outside vendors that some of our customers' information has been compromised. Listed the last 4 digits of my AT&T account number, and basically they were encouraging us to go into their click on this link and go redo these settings.
Yep.
So instantly I said, no, I'm not clicking on any link until, you know. But, you know, even if it was real, I mean, who should be more prepared security-wise than AT&T, right?
Oh. The more I work with large companies, the more I'm appalled at how the lack of security that they have. And not just cybersecurity, but just in general, internal controls and fraud prevention. It is appalling how bad it is.
Well, the email was well written. They basically said they got some of our CPNI, some type of network information, and in essence, they said, you know, no social security numbers, no credit card information was compromised.
Yeah.
However, usernames and passwords were.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I just said, I'm not doing anything until, you know, I double check. Second thought is, you know, you're talking about anybody will steal from you. I'll give you one as an example, a guy that owned multiple Burger King franchises. And he was very, very successful at that. Fortunately, he was making a lot of money, but he had this one convenience store thing that he invested in, and to give a family member something to do to run this business. And it was eating his lunch. On paper, he was profitable. But in reality, he was having to take tens of thousands of dollars a month to keep this thing going. And so I gave him just, you know, 2 or 3 things of, look for this, start doing this. He called me back about 2 days later, and he was distraught because he had found his thief. And I said, man, you know, you really seem to be uptight about this. And he goes, it's my dad.
Oh my God.
So you just don't know who you can't trust. And you got to have the checks and balances in place to, I mean, he sold the store. Just said, we're not doing it. He would have been better off just to take $5,000 a month and give it to his dad. You know, rather than put him in a position to commit fraud to his own son.
Well, it's payback for the son tricking the father.
Yeah, can't know all.
So have I told you guys the story of the 73-year-old bookkeeper? Have I mentioned the 73-year-old bookkeeper in here? So there was, I think it was a small insurance business, actually, I think. But they had a 73-year-old lady that was doing the bookkeeping. When I say bookkeeping, I mean she was paying all of the bills, taking care of all of the cash, doing everything from the accounting side you can. And there was one time the owner was called saying that there was a small fire at your office. So he goes in, and not only was there a fire, but the 73-year-old lady, poor lady, was stripped down to her underwear, tied to a chair, and her nose was broken, and there was a small fire in one filing cabinet. After a little bit of investigation, it was found that she had been embezzling money, stealing money to pay for her mortgage and her son's mortgage for the last 10 years. She had set the fire to the filing cabinet. Police report technically says she broke her own nose, but speculation is the son actually did it to be able to make it look like an attack. And then she tied herself to the chair to make it look like someone had broken in and did all of this. So she was charged with theft or fraud. She was following a false police report, arson. She also filed a workers' comp claim while she was in the hospital. So now you're also charging a false workers' comp claim as well. So 73 years old, she's looking at God knows how much time in jail, plus all of the fines and all of that. If the business owner, so one of the biggest controls I always recommend, and I do this myself every single day, all right? I don't know about y'all, but I wake up, I have to feed the cat because the cat will not shut up until I feed the cat. I start the pot of coffee, and then I'm a 42, almost 43-year-old male, which means nature calls basically before I even try to wake up. So as I'm taking care of that, I bring out my phone and I open up my Chase app and double check the balance and look at any kind of transactions that happened that prior day. If that business owner would have done that just once a month, that fraud would have been caught years ago. But instead, they just trusted that bookkeeper. 73-year-old lady, I'm sure she was very nice and polite and, grandmother, but she got away with it because there was no oversight at all. But I know my bank account every morning, and I know exactly what happened the day before because I open it up. That's the first thing I do every single day before I even look at my emails or my LinkedIn messages. That's the first thing I do. So that's the strongest control I can recommend for anyone. And my wife knows down to the penny our bank account for our personal account. So that's something that's very easy to watch for as well. I mentioned first off, going back real quick to this one, I didn't cover this one. Phishing emails, we talked about the phishing emails, we talked about different examples. Most of them, this is not an official statistic, this is a statistic I made up, but it's probably very accurate. 99% of phishing emails include an unreasonable amount of urgency to get you to act without thinking. It's, we need this now, okay? If you don't do this, your Amazon account's gonna get closed. If you don't do, so.
No.
Right? It might save me money. So if you get an email that is, this needs to be done now, this is urgent, that should be an immediate red flag of, is this really something that would be urgent? If I got an email from Charlie tomorrow saying, I need help now, can you really send me money, I'm in jail, I would know immediately that I'm not gonna be the first person he's gonna be calling, right? So I know that's probably gonna be fraudulent, but that's the number one red flag is they're trying to get you to act without thinking. Just an example of the Authenticator app, if nobody's familiar with it or you're not sure what to talk about from a multi-factor or MFA, this is the screenshot from my own phone. So you have an Authenticator app. I've got just a few different accounts here that are that are listed. Whenever you hit it, it gives you a one-time passcode. The reason why I didn't mind putting that one-time passcode up there is because in 11 seconds after I made the screenshot, it was going to go away anyway. It was going to change. Does anybody have questions about multi-factor or MFA? Everybody kind of familiar with it?
What is MFA?
Multi-factor authentication. So it's basically what you were saying about like you get a code like a text or email. That's what that is.
But
The first factor is password. The second factor is whatever you set it to be.
Yeah, but do you like create one for your other stuff, or is something that is like Chase that has its own whatever
Yeah,
system?
that's what
oh,
it is.
okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So normally they give you the option of doing an Authenticator app or get it via text or get it via email. And the app is just the easiest. It's probably one of the more secure because if they have access to your email, you get the code sent to your email and they essentially get the code already. But by having an Authenticator app, it helps. It's a little more secure.
Is that a well-known one? What's that one called?
That one's, I think that's the Google one.
Yeah, just Google.
Yeah.
Would you recommend this? I guess, I'm not sure, but being that how easy it is to do like SIM swaps now, and like, you can gain access to somebody's phone number, would you recommend, or would you prefer the Authenticator app over getting like a text message?
I prefer the Authenticator app, but again, nothing is 100%.
Right.
If text messages are easier, then stick with the text messages. I think Chase Bank is still a text message. So,
I think your overall caveat is if it's difficult, your risk is really low.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. So for talking about the internal and external risks, we've got the lovely fraud triangle, and actually, I don't think I'm part of it anymore. I think I officially expired just recently and didn't renew, but the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, ACFE, worked real hard on identifying not just fraud, but also understanding the underlying reasons of why fraud happened. And in every fraud case, you have what's called the fraud triangle. There was some type of a pressure, financial pressure, some type of pressure. There's a rationalization by the person that did it, and there's the opportunity. So there's the financial pressure of, I don't get paid enough, or I've got medical bills piling up. The rationalization, hey, Joe down the street makes more than me and we do the same job, so I deserve a little bit more than this. And then the opportunity of, I have access to the credit cards, or, you leave cash sitting around. If you have all three parts of that triangle, the odds of fraud exponentially increase. Over 80% of people that were surveyed at one point admitted that if they had all three of these presented, they would commit fraud. If they thought they could get away with it, they said yes, we would do it. 80% of people actually said yes. The other 20%, remember how we said at the very beginning that everybody is a sinner? They're liars are what they are. So understanding that you have these three parts of the fraud triangle, your goal when it comes to employees as well as external is knock out one of these sides of the triangle. Don't make the opportunity easy. If you see that they have some type of financial pressure, the more you work with people, the more they talk, right? So if they're talking about, my mom's in the hospital, we're having a lot of medical bills we're helping her with, okay, they're gonna be tempted, okay? And our goal, especially as Christian business leaders, is to help reduce that temptation. And I don't have a clear cut, this is what you do, right? But at least being aware, hey, they have more financial pressure. Let's make sure they don't have the opportunity to take from us. Let's make sure that we talk through things so they aren't trying to rationalize things in their head. Anything like that you can do, if you see one side of this triangle being stronger, you need to make sure the other parts are completely gone, or as minimal as possible, so that way they don't commit this fraud.
Do you think if you help them, they're less apt to steal from you?
That would make it harder for them to rationalize. But it wouldn't, I agree with your comment. No, it wouldn't completely take away one of these, but it could lessen that rationalization.
I think it would feel horrible if you're helping me and I'm gonna steal from you. That's insane.
Well, I think a lot of times they're giving you their rationalization ahead of time.
Yeah.
If they had the opportunity and they could take it, they'd already have that rationalization out there in front of you.
Yeah. Unfortunately too, I think sometimes there's an accelerator on there if they do a little bit of that.
Yeah.
And then they get away with it and they start to get comfortable with it, and then, they start to take a little more and then it gets comfortable.
Yeah.
And then they start really rationalizing it,
Well, that's what's happened with the Collins Street Bakery up in Corsicana, Texas. This guy took, I think it was like $100 out of petty cash, and expected to walk in the next day and get fired, basically, or at least someone say, hey, question it, and nobody questioned it. The next day, the next day, he did a little bit more, and he ended up stealing, I think it was over $11 million over a 9-year period.
Whoa.
It just kept, you get away with one little thing, and all of a sudden, wow.
They're also often thinking that you're probably not gonna put them in jail.
$11 million, I'm burying you under the jail.
Well, that's the thing. What I'm saying is, most of them think that even if they get caught, they're not gonna be held accountable, that they'll be able to say, I'm sorry, and I'll pay you back, or something like that, and you'll go with it.
Yeah, to your point, that first $100, the guy's probably all night thinking about what he's going to say, why he took it, what he did with it, all those things, and then nobody say anything. So by the time you get to $11 million, of course you expect something, but the first couple things, you've already thought about what you're going to say and why, and financial pressure, and things aren't so good, and I was going to ask you, but I felt bad, and I was going to put it back.
It reminds me of that movie Office Space where he takes his pennies.
Yep.
But it's on a million.
You put the decimal in the wrong place.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Great.
That's great.
I have a question.
Sure.
So I ran some reports last night.
Okay.
And I realized now, all of them are doing it, but my receptionists are coming in an hour early. And I was under the impression that they weren't clocking in. I thought, more power to you. If you want to come in and do that, that's on you. Because I checked in the beginning. Well, now they're all doing it. When I did the math, and you're going to shoot me for this, it was almost $600 a month difference. And I almost fell over.
Yeah, time theft is big.
That is stealing from me, though.
Yes, it is.
What is there to do at 7:30 in the morning at my salon when we don't get there till 9? I mean, there's a lot to do. I could find a billion things to do, but it's not their salon. So that's stealing from me, in a sense.
It is, you gotta put some systems in place. A lot of time clock systems now allow you to block time. They can't clock in more than 10 minutes early or 15 minutes early. They can't clock out more than X amount of time after the shift's over without a manager's approval. So if you do need them to clock in, you can, or clock out. But yeah, there's definitely systems to prevent that, or at least bring hyper awareness to it. So it sends you a message saying, hey, Susie clocked in early today. You know, more than whatever range you set. It's funny how they all learn.
I want to go home and go in and clean the house, but I can't answer the phones all day.
Oh, if you
It's
just
time for Mateos to get up.
if you just do a blanket policy, whatever time you're scheduled to be in, you can't clock in more than 10 minutes early, 15 minutes early. That'll stop that hour. They'll still take advantage of whatever you give as far as like 10, 15 minutes, but that's a whole lot cheaper than a full hour for all.
Some of them were an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So my question now is, I call payroll in today, can I deduct those hours?
I wouldn't recommend it.
Uh-uh.
I wouldn't recommend it. I would make sure that there's a message to the receptionist that says, hey, you know, we noticed, you know, we appreciate you showing up early.
But it's on the schedule that they're supposed to be there at 8:30.
For sure.
You can be sure the government is not sympathetic.
Yeah.
I that you're asking for a legal issue. I wouldn't. I would process payroll, but then draw a line in the sand.
Yeah. We all talk about the cost of it, tuition at school. There's a cost of tuition at business too. Yeah. If you don't mind, Renee's gonna stand outside. We all need to give her a hug.
I need some fans on me.
That's right.
So I do say the biggest single digital risk, it's not just digital, honestly, it's really the biggest risk to your business was given access to your accounting, your bank, your all of your company data the day you hired them. Okay? The biggest risk to your company are your employees, your business partners. One of my favorite books, the guy opens with, well, I can't use the language that he opened with, but he woke up to a very bad scenario because he looked at his bank account and it had $325 in it. And the night before it had something like $80,304 because his business partner cleaned out the account and walked away.
Yep.
So having controls in with your bank, you know, really helps out. I know Chase Bank, if I had a business partner or anything like that, if I can set limits where money cannot be transferred and bills cannot be paid over a certain amount without a second person logging in and approving it. I mean, it's built into their processes. Most banks have that built in now. So that's very critical. All right, so we're almost out of time, but just hitting the internal side a little bit more. Try not to have that bad cop mindset. You think, oh, if I'm having to watch everybody, then I'm going to come across as this bad cop. I think everybody's going to be stealing from me. Just remember those Bible verses at the beginning that everybody is a sinner. And what you're trying to do is not just help protect your company, but you're trying to help protect them. You're reducing that temptation. You can also be tempted. Recognize your own temptations and put protections in place to be able to help protect yourself as well. Be vigilant. One of the red flags, it's called a parking lot audit. If you walk out in the parking lot and look at the cars of your employees, if one car is a Mercedes, brand new Mercedes, and everybody else is driving 1994 Corollas, might be questioning what that employee is doing. That Corsicana one is a great example. That guy had brand new, I think it was Rolls Royces. He was in Corsicana, people.
Working as a bookkeeper at a bake shop.
Yeah.
Do they need a new bookkeeper, by the way?
What are they bragging about? He was actually a controller, but that same guy was bragging to his boss, the CFO, that he was donating more money to charities than his boss was. This guy's making less money than the boss, yet his donating more money to the same charities. Another red flag. Sudden changes in lifestyle. If they've been, you can tell if they've been dressing a certain way, acting a certain way, having certain jewelry, and then all of a sudden, a couple days later, everything has improved dramatically. Where did the cash come from? And you're not going to go in there and say, how did you report that? But it's something, okay, maybe I need to be looking at, do I have something that I need to, controls I need to put in place, or do I need to review cash a little bit closer, something like that. All right, then we will hit the external risk real quick. The external risk, just be mindful of customers, vendors, strangers on the street, but also the third-party providers. If you outsource your accounting, if you outsource your IT support, do they have their proper controls and protections in place? And it's fine to ask those questions. There's been numerous outsourced IT providers that have been fired because they are not backing up data. And you don't know they're not backing up data until you suddenly have a file get deleted. And you say, hey, I know you've been backing up things once a week per our contract. Can you, bring up last week's file? I said, oh, we haven't been doing that for 6 months. You don't want to find that out afterwards. So thinking about your third-party service providers and what are you relying on them on, and are they abiding by their contracts? We're just about out of time, but any questions, comments there about whether internal or external? I hit that a little bit quicker. But.
No, I noticed just from some of the people I pay on vendors, some of their prices change and they don't always send me a update notification. And all of a sudden it's just now I'm on this new subscription that's elevated and I'm like figuring out through the bank thing and I'm like, how long have I been paying on this new pricing? That's upsetting.
Yeah. So that's where, again, keeping an eye on those bank accounts. Like I have the privilege of being a very, very small company, and I can tell you my 5 or 6 monthly expenses that I have for my business, and I know if they change. But if I do a trial service or I do something and all of a sudden they hit without a warning, the price increase, or hey, it's an annual renewal and I didn't get an email ahead of time, I will immediately go in there and cancel it. And then I'll email customer service saying, hey, you charged me without any kind of prior notice. Let's talk. And most of the time they'll apologize and refund or negotiate. But don't hesitate to contact your customer service like that. But
Yeah, what's really irritating is how many of them are only adding $2 or $3 or $4 a month or something. It's too much of a hassle to go back and cancel. They figure you're just gonna let it go, or if you even notice it.
Okay. Well, the online streaming services right now are doing that majorly. HBO Max just went up $1 a month.
Yeah, we dropped them.
Yeah.
You drop all of them?
Yeah.
What?
What do you do now?
What do you watch?
I watch dogs more.
That's right, he just started
I go
a
to
company,
the
he don't have
park
time.
more, I'll go to the gym more.
Carolina Gaines don't watch TV and their children aren't allowed to watch TV, by the way.
Yeah.
Yet they have their own network.
Yeah, I know.
We get Netflix and stuff from other people. You should try.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But the only reason why I have Netflix right now is because T-Mobile gives it away for free for my level. I'm like, all right, that'll work. So,
Yeah.
But we didn't have
Well, we
Netflix
have
for
Disney
years.
Plus because Verizon.
Yeah.
We have like 8 phones on my account, so.
Oh,
Yeah.
So there's and y'all probably know about it because I'm computer literate, but PureFlix. So I have PureFlix. And it's a Christian, and it's like my whole motto in life is garbage in, garbage out. So just watch it, be careful. And a little song that says, "Be careful what you see."
My wife is very mindful of that, and she basically doesn't watch rated R movies anymore.
Well, I just don't watch TV. I just
Netflix is good though.
it's good.
Also, the Angel app
Yes.
Yep.
TV shows and movies, and also if you look into it, you'll find a lot of Christian-based TV shows and movies are actually free. So it's like you get to learn something from it, and you get to get in a closer relationship with God
Absolutely.
as well, rather than going the opposite.
This PureFlix, I think I paid $70 for the year. So
That's awesome.
it's worth it.
Well, very good. Well, thank you, Thomas, for that. If anybody has some specific questions, Thomas would be a great resource to lean on. I think we've talked about that many times in this group. When you're going through something, you're learning something, you're going to talk to an outsourced vendor perhaps for your IT support. Hey, Thomas, what questions can I ask to validate this? Or can you talk to them for me? But, things to help each other out. But please lean on that resource. I actually had Thomas come do an assessment with my company, And now I blame him for every reason I check up on people. Thomas told me to do it. Thomas
You had your rationalization.
That's right. So it works out really well, and thank you for that, Thomas. But it's been great. It certainly gave us another level of understanding of what we were doing right and what we continue to need to be focused on so that we can keep ourselves and our clients safe. So it's been great. So thanks for the information today. Next week, as Charlie was talking about at the beginning of the meeting, we've got the president and CEO of Compassion United, which is an amazing organization based right here in Conroe, doing some great things for our community. He's going to be talking about culture. And it's interesting because you're talking about Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A has a culture that is obvious. Compassion has a culture that's very obvious. And as much as small business operators, we think of ourselves in a secular environment for the most part. Businesses operate the same. The business of the church, the business of Compassion United, a charity organization, they operate the same. They have to bring money in, they have to send money out. They're just kind of doing something specific. I was just talking about social entrepreneurialism the other day, and the best charitable organizations operate like a business because they know they have fiscal responsibilities and they know they can't do a whole lot without it. And so, really neat guy. And so please bring some friends next week. We'll pack the house for Luke and have a great discussion about what he's doing and how he's maintaining the culture in his environment. So, all good. All right. Mike, you want to bring us out?
Sure. Father, we thank you for this reminder today to always remain diligent because, well, there's just so much evil in the world and definitely temptation. I just ask that you would show each of us how you would have us apply these best practices when it comes to making sure that we keep standards high in our businesses, that as your word clearly says, we're to do everything as if we're working for you, because we are. So I just lift up each of the brothers and sisters that are sitting around this table and ask that you would place on our hearts how you would have us apply this in business, and most of all, that you would use us as examples of Christ-like character that would cause others to say, I want to be like them. We love you, Father. We praise you and look forward to walking through the day with you today. Amen.
Amen.